Hey, what's up guys? So today we're here talking about the Focus RS and all of my tracking that I've been doing for the last year and a half. Let me tell you a little about me and what got me into actually tracking, and I'll go into a little bit of why I have the Focus RS as my track car, and I'm going to go into breakdown of the costs. Now, most of everything you see in this video will apply to any vehicle, not specifically a Focus RS. So whether you have a Miata or a Corvette, almost everything you see in this video will help you figure out roughly what your costs are going to be for going to the track. So about 8 or 9 years ago, I started doing autocross very heavily in my Jetta. At the time, I absolutely fell in love with the sport, and it was a nice competitive nature. You got to meet like-minded people, and that was really enjoyable for me. Well, when I bought this Focus to replace my Jetta, I had all intentions of selling my Jetta. So when you buy a Focus RS, you get access to Adrenaline Academy. So what that is you fly out to Utah to Ford Racing School, and you get access to one of their Focus RS's and basically a full track day, along with a drifting day with the electronic e-brake that everyone loves. And after all, this was co-designed by Ken Block, since Ford partnered with him, and he helped with the design on the driving dynamics and how the car actually interacts on track and stuff like that. So we got to play with that drift stick and actually do a drifting course around, and we got to do an autocross event. So it was an all fun-packed day out in Utah. Well, that got me hooked on the racing perspective on track. Once I saw how safe it is on track, how much runoff there is on track, and how much more fun you can have on track when you're not worried about other people who are not paying attention, I was hooked. I flew home, and within 6 months, I was on track. My first track day was with a company called Zilla, and I'm going to go and show the breakdown right here. Alright, so the first item on the list is the actual track day. So that was $275 to get in with Zilla. And then the next thing you see is me breaking down the cost for insurance. So that insurance cost was roughly $253. Now what that includes is I go through Hagerty for insurance on my car. I still have a car note on the car, and I want to make sure that I'm made whole if something were to go wrong on track. That $253 covers $36,000 worth of coverage, which is what I had covered my car for when I first purchased it. I went out on my first track day with less than 4,000 miles on the car, so the car's value was still pretty high. Now that $253 had a 10% deductible. So if something were to happen, and let's say I totaled my car, it would have been $36,000. They withhold 10%, which is $3,600, and then they write me a check for the rest. I've had many friends who have used Hagerty for insurance in the past, had no issues with them if they ever had to file a claim. My tuner actually had to file a claim about 2 years ago, and Hagerty was great about it. They were able to allow him to just leave the car on the track. They came and assessed the damage, and they wrote him a check within 2 weeks, which was really awesome. They had the ability to give him a rental car. Luckily, he had another car, so he didn't take them up on the rental car offer. And that is something I would highly recommend if you are worried about possibly wrecking your only means of transportation. So the next thing you see on there is the brake cost. So that's roughly $43 for the rotors. Now, how I did this is I added up the rotor cost for all 4 brand new rotors for the Focus RS, again using OEM rotors, and then calculated roughly how long they were gonna last. And I have a lot of track data as of now, so that information that you see on screen, it's roughly $43 per track day that I go out there, so that's why it's listed there. The next thing is pads. Now, I'm just going to put an asterisk here on this pads because I did upgrade to track pads by the time I actually started tracking metrics and how much stuff costed. However, I ran my first 2 track days at Road Atlanta running on the OEM pads, and I still have those OEM pads, which I switch on between track days for street use. I have probably close to 13,000 street miles on the OEM pads, and they still have a little bit of life left in them. And when I go into the off season, which is coming around the corner, I'm actually going to be throwing OEM pads back onto the vehicle. That way I don't have to deal with the super squeaky track brakes which are currently on there. However, the price you see here is for the G-Lock brakes that I use. So I use the G-Lock R12 and R8s in the rear. I have gone through a set of the R12s up front. They ended up lasting about 5 track days for the front pads, and they were worn to the point that I didn't want to do my next track day on them because I had a 3-day track event and I knew I was going to have to switch them in the middle. So I went ahead and replaced them. So I just did rough calculations, and it comes down to roughly $59 a day that I am at the track if you include the front wear only, even though I still have back brakes, which are still from the original set that I purchased. Next on the seat, you see helmet and tires. So the helmet, like I said, I'm just depreciating the cost of the helmet since I'll only be able to use it for so many races before I need a new, more certified helmet. So I have a Snell 2015, which expires in 2020. So I'm just trying to include that cost into my track days so I can roughly get an estimate on how much track days cost. The next thing you see is the Federal RSRR tires. Now those were 245, 45, 18, 200 treadwear track tires. They cost $500 shipped to my tire installer. Now you'll notice that I said 18-inch. Now the reason is I ended up buying a set of track wheels. Now you don't have to buy track wheels. Federal actually makes that tire in a 19 for the exact same price. So you could get that tire and throw it on your factory wheels like I have. So it broke down to those tires actually lasted me for 5 track days before I ended up having to toss them. So $500, 5 track days, negate the cost of installation on those tires, and we get $100 per track day. So now you can see the total of that track day, $735. Now, some people are freaking out at this point, and you're like, oh, wow, $735 just to go out on track? A lot of these costs are not realized immediately. The only cost that you have immediately realized is the track day itself and track insurance if you purchase it. Everything else is stuff that will last for a while. You can drive the car on the street with all of these parts on there and depreciate them over time. So it's not like you have to write a $750 check at the end of your first track day because that's how much it costs. All of these parts will wear over time, and the costs aren't going to be right up front. So now, let's talk about your first track day in your Focus RS. So, when I went out on my first track day, I went out on the factory Michelin Pilot Super Sports, on the factory 19-inch wheels, and the only mod I had on the entire car was an exhaust. I bought an exhaust within 60 days of buying the car, mainly because the exhaust was super quiet, and I wanted something that was a little bit louder, since to me, an exhaust is something you hear every single day, every single time you turn on the car. It's worth the cost whether it adds performance or not. So all I did is I made sure I got my brakes bled, and I went out on OEM pads and OEM rotors. Now some people will be like, oh my god, you got fade and blah blah blah. Look, I promise you, your first time out on track, unless you are a track veteran, chances are you probably didn't buy this car for tracking, and if you are a track veteran, yes, you may be able to get them to fade. So again, first track day, I went out, and all I did is bleed the brakes, and we replaced it with Motul 600. Now 600 is a perfect balance of streetable and trackable fluid. I never cooked the brakes on my first track day out, mainly because you're going to be more afraid of the car than the car is going to be pushed to its limits. So you're not going to be going into brake zones so deep that you're going to cook the factory pads or the rotors or boil the fluid. So what I recommend is you go out that first time, make sure you get an instructor. When you run with Jzilla or many of the track groups across the nation doing an HPDE event, you will be assigned an instructor if it is your first time tracking the vehicle. Listen to your instructor. Take instruction, listen up as well as you can, and I promise you, you will have a great time. You'll learn a lot about the vehicle, and you will be blown away that Ford has built this vehicle that can actually take track abuse in completely stock form with no issues whatsoever. So after you've done 2 or 3 track days, you're going to get more and more comfortable with the car, and you're going to start finding the limits of the factory pads. This is the first upgrade I would recommend after flushing your fluid. Get new pads. Like I said, I run the G-Lock R12s up front and the R8s in the back. And I have never once experienced fade as long as you give the brakes time to cool down. Now what I'm saying is, I have a video I'll post right here where I went off at 10A at Road Atlanta. This was at my last track event, which was Grid Life. And the reason I went off is I was so excited that my car wasn't overheating that I ran 7 laps back to back without stopping. And 7 laps at Road Atlanta with no slowdown, my brakes finally faded. However, if you have a cool down lap anywhere in there, you're never gonna experience fade. And these R12s grip so hard, it is amazing. Absolutely love them. Definitely recommend them. And I'll put a link to where I buy my pads from below. Okay, so now you've got the pads out of the way and you're braking deeper and deeper, you're getting on power earlier, you're learning the apexes, and you're getting faster going around track. The next thing that you're gonna hit, I will bet you anything, is the car overheating. Again, we're still at stock power right now and the car's overheating. The next upgrade, if you are tracking your vehicle, is the Mountoon upgraded triple pass radiator. That radiator with stock power will solve all of your overheating problems. I live in Atlanta. My last track day was Grid Life. It was a 3-day event. Weather hit in the mid-90s, crested into the hundreds at some points during the day, and I never had overheating issues when I was running my stock tune. Now you see me mentioning stock tune everywhere. Well, the reason is I actually am tuned on this car. And on the street, my tuner has made an amazing tune that literally makes a night and day difference on this vehicle. However, whenever you are on track, all that extra boost creates extra heat. And when you have all that extra heat and you have nowhere for it to go in this tiny little engine bay, regardless of having the upgraded Mountoon radiator, you are gonna overheat. So starting next season, to solve this overheating issue while tuned, I'm gonna be working with my tuner JST Performance, and we're gonna be doing tons of track days where I'm logging and seeing how much more boost can I put into the motor that it can still expel the heat properly. Again, I have all the cooling mods you could think of, so we just gotta find that perfect balance, because getting 29 PSI of boost, yeah, that's right, 29 PSI on the stock turbo is what my tuner is getting me. That is just clearly too much boost to be able to expel all the heat that the engine is now making. So when I'm on track, I drop back to my stock tune, and that stock tune has not slowed me down. Since I first started tracking about 1.5 years ago, my best time at Road Atlanta when I first started my first track day out was a 152. My next track day was a 151. And my last track day that I just ran, I beat my all-time best of 145.3, and I dropped that down to 144.8, running a completely stock tune. I promise you, seat time always wins. The more time you get in the track, the more comfortable you get, the more you learn the limits of the vehicle, and the faster you'll be able to go. Again, at this point, still, as the car sits right now, I'm running on stock suspension, and when I'm at the track, I'm running a completely stock tune. I have an upgraded intercooler and an upgraded radiator, and I don't even have an intake or any other modifications done to the engine besides that. So now that we've talked about our first track day and what to do, what mods to do, and what order to do them in, let's talk about a question I get asked constantly by all of my friends and basically anyone at the track that hears about Focus RS overheating. Why did you choose the Focus RS as your track car? Well, when I first bought the car, the idea was it was going to be a fun everyday car. I had been driving my Jetta for like close to 7 years, and I was just bored with how slow it was, and I wanted something new, and I was finally at a point in my life where I could afford to buy a Focus RS. So I said, let's go ahead and buy something fun and fast, and I'll sell my Jetta on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. Well, I got the Focus, got bit by the track bug, and I was like, it's not smart to only have one car. So I kept my Jetta, and my Jetta is my drive everyday car, and this is my track car. So yes, it overheats, but at the end of the day, I could build an E36 that makes 350 horsepower naturally aspirated for under 10 grand. Yeah, that's possible. However, it wouldn't look as good as this. It wouldn't have all the creature comforts for when I do want to take it on the street. And I absolutely love this car. Ever since the Focus came to America, I have been waiting for the RS model to make its way here. And Europe keeps getting it year after year after year. And we finally get it. So I went ahead and made the plunge, and I picked this guy up, and I regret nothing. So a lot of people on my Instagram have asked, hey man, is that your truck? Hey, is that your trailer? You trailer your car to the track? Well, it's not my trailer, it's not my truck. Although, I am in the process of trying to get a trailer and a truck. I brought my buddy's truck and trailer. He has a drift car, and he has been drifting for 2 years, and the last few years, his car has been down while he is doing upgrades and making it into a turbo E36. So he's been letting me use his trailer and truck. So I should probably incorporate the costs of that also. So whenever I borrow his truck, diesel fuel ends up costing me anywhere in the neighborhood of $60 to $80 to pick up my car from downtown Atlanta, take it to the tracks in his truck, drop my car back off in Atlanta, and then drop the truck back off. Ends up being $80 in gas. And now that you've seen how I break down the costs, and I'll have the Google Sheets link in the comments below, you'll actually be able to see how you can apply this information to your vehicle. Just remember, more horsepower means more consumables, right? Well, more consumables means your track day is more expensive. So yes, you see these guys going out in cars that make 150 horsepower all the time. Well, the reason is their track costs are very low. When tracking the car, the best way to reduce your track costs is weight and horsepower. Trust me, you don't need more power, you need more seat time to learn the car. Throw an experienced driver into your car, and I promise you they'll be able to get faster times than you will out of your own car because they understand tracking dynamics. Ride with someone and take instruction. Best advice I can ever give you. I always have my buddy who's been tracking for many years sit passenger seat when I go to HPDE events, and he tells me where I'm going slow, where I need to improve my time. I also use metrics like video. I'll have a GoPro attached to the top. Got a video linked here that you can see my last fastest time at Grid Life. And you'll see that I also have a GPS that was pulling speed. So I have accurate speed. I can see when I'm leaving the turns, what the apex is. A lot of people also use what's called aim solo. It's basically like a driver trainer that is available inside the car. It pulls GPS and it tells you, are you going faster? Are you going slower? Do you need to make up time in a section? It's an awesome thing to have as you get more serious into your track days. I personally use the app called Track Addict, along with a dedicated GPS and a GoPro remotely mounted on my roof. The phone controls all three of those devices together, and I can combine the footage together to give you the footage that you saw in this video that was just linked above. Now let's break down you getting more serious into your track days. So as you can see right here, I have the track breakdown cost for my last event. My last event was Grid Life South. It was a 4-day event if you include roll-in, 2 days of heavy tracking. The third day, which was Sunday, we got one session in, and then we packed up and we all drove home. So technically, it was a 3-day of racing event. So let's go through it line by line. So the entrance fee to Grid Life was $566. Again, remember, if you break it down per day, I got 3 days of track access at Road Atlanta for $566, which is a steal if I've ever seen one. Next, UC Insurance was $460. Now you'll notice that it didn't just multiply by 3 since I had a 3-day track event. The way track insurance works is you have an initial cost for just the insurance. And then as you add more days, up to 3 days is what all the big companies offer, you can actually not have to pay as much more per day. So $460 covered me for 3 days. And that includes me getting to the track and leaving the track. If anything were to happen in between that would not be covered by regular car insurance, I would be covered by my track insurance. So there you go, $460. Next, you see my track pads. So basically what I did is I just doubled it. Since it was a 2-day event and I did one track session in the morning on Sunday, roughly 2 days worth. That's $118 on pad. Next is rotors. So this time around, I upgraded to R1 Concept slotted rotors. So that ends up breaking down to $115. Now, I don't know how long these rotors are going to last, but I'm going to estimate they're going to last as long as my OEM rotors did, since they are basically just a nice little slotted vane. Next is the helmet cost. So you see I doubled the cost of the helmet since technically used it for 2 days. You could call it 3 days and make it $15, but that's my helmet cost since that is something that I'm going to have to buy again. And last, you see tires. So this time around, I upgraded tires. There was a new regulation that went in January for global time attack that tires could no longer be 200 tread wear based in the enthusiast class. Basically what they were trying to do was level the playing field so you could not run RE71Rs in the enthusiast class, which is what this car competes in on a regular basis. So I upgraded to the S007A tires by Bridgestone, which is the baby brother to the RE71. It is a 240 treadwear tire, and it is a little bit more expensive. However, these tires are outlasting all of my anticipated initial estimates because I have 5 track days on them, and I still think I may be able to get 2 or 3 more out of them because they're wearing so evenly, so well, and they actually grip better than those Federals. So you can see that breaks down to $255 for 2 days. Now that's with me calculating them being used for 6 track events. But like I said, I already have 5 track days on them, and I think I'll be able to get 3 or 4 more out of them, so the cost will actually come down. And I'll keep that Excel sheet that I linked earlier up to date so you can always track how much my track costs are. So if you add all of that up together, you see that for that entire weekend, it was $1,525 for the event. Now, you break it down per day that I actually was racing. Like I said, I don't really count Sunday, even though I set my best time on Sunday. It's roughly the same cost as a 1-day track event when you take into account all your consumables. You'll notice that I upgraded my tires, I upgraded my rotors, and I'm using more expensive parts. But because the parts are going to last over so much time, I don't actually end up seeing the cost right away. During that event, all I really paid for was the entrance fee and the insurance. So under $1,000, I had a 3-day fun-filled weekend, and I paid probably $80 in diesel for the truck, and that was it. So now the last thing I forgot to mention is gas mileage while on track. Now this is a little bit of a funny one because it really depends on your driving style, how often you're in it. But on track, I'm averaging anywhere from 7 to 9 miles per gallon, and when I leave off track, if on the track days when I just drive my car to the track and then I drive home, I'll end up averaging total between highway and track gas mileage somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 13 miles per gallon. Now, you see that I had the truck and trailer for my last 2 events that I went to. However, when I have 1-day events that I run with Jayzilla, I normally just load up the Focus RS. I've got a video here with it completely loaded, and you'll see that I actually have all of my tires. So I keep my street tires on when I'm driving there. At the track, I switch onto my track tires. Then I have a tent, 3 chairs, all of my power tools, and anything I could possibly need to work on the car in case I needed to take something off at the track, repair something, or fix blowing off a boost pipe like I did at my last event. So now that I've talked about track costs, let's go ahead and take a look at what I normally have inside the car when I'm just driving it. A lot of you probably haven't seen the car in a while, and you'll notice that I have the back seats actually in there since I compete in the enthusiast class. And normally I take the seats out and I replace them with a false floor, and I throw my spare tire in there. But let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. Alrighty. So as you can see here, we got my Global Time Attack stickers and my Grid Life stickers. I ran the ST class at Grid Life. You can see Kate's Custom Creations. She does all of my graphics on my cars, such as these logos. She's going to be reprinting my new JST Performance side decals, and I'm going to be doing a full new decal setup for next track season since I'm done with the season this go around. So inside you will see that I actually have a roll cage. It's a partial roll cage. It's a WR 4-point roll cage, and you'll notice I have a factory forged tire actually as my spare tire in there. What I did is I purchased a bent rim off of Rated RS, who most of you guys have seen us do our collabs together, and he had blown out one of them, but it still holds air perfectly fine. So I went ahead and bought it off of him, and I have a full-size spare now. Inside of the back of the car, I got my air pump over here, which I always keep. I also got a pair of jumper cables since I have killed the battery before. And I got power tools over here and a jack over there, along with a torque wrench to actually replace this full-size spare if I ever go on a trip and I happen to need it. So if you've made it this far, let's take a quick second to talk about something that I'm very excited for. When I get to 500 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away a Rove dash cam. That is a dash cam that I run in the front of my car and the back of my car. That dash cam has saved me so much money. I had over $3,000 in damages to this vehicle while parked in my parking garage. The cool thing with the Rove dash cam is plugs straight into a cigarette lighter and has its own battery inside. So when the car gets knocked or hit or something like that, turns on and starts recording immediately. Like I said, I got one in the front and the back, and I had enough video evidence to go after the person, and they were actually just willing to pay me for the repairs without even questioning it because I had them on video. We didn't have to go to court or anything, and this dash cam is awesome. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell, and write in the comments, what other things do you want to know? Maybe I can do a follow-up track video where I explain to you other questions that people have about tracking either a Focus RS or any vehicle of any type. Until next time.